Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and today we have some Pokemon Blue version. The day this video is being recorded and the day it's actually being uploaded to YouTube is September 28th of 2015. And if you guys are unaware, September 28th is actually the anniversary date for Pokemon Red and Blue making the release in North America. That happened on September 28th of 1998, which means I would have been about 7 years old when these games actually came out, which I think is pretty crazy. And what I kind of wanted to do here with this video is go on a bit of a nostalgia trip, tell some stories, talk about my experiences with the Pokemon Red and Blue games and Yellow and all the other Pokemon games, and my experience with gaming growing up and how it really set me on this path of a lifelong passion of gaming. Right, so that's what I figured we would do here with this video, and hopefully you guys will sit back, relax, and just enjoy the stories while we play a little bit here through Pokemon Blue. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to be beating the game or anything like that here in this video. I'm not going to be going through a speed run or anything along those lines because that just seems silly, but I am going to play through a bit. Maybe we'll get up to Pure City and try and beat Brock or something along those lines, but yeah, we'll be messing around here a little bit, and hopefully you guys will sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So I woke up today, and as I was just casually scrolling through Twitter and just checking things out, I'm like, wait a minute, I saw people talking about this was actually the 17-year anniversary for Pokemon Red and Blue in North America, and that's insane to me. And so I immediately started thinking back to when I first got my first Game Boy and I first got these games as a whole, and how, again, they really set me up with this passion that's really been there my entire life for video games and for gaming in general. So I figured I'd tell you the story of how I really first started getting into video games and how I first got into the Pokemon games in general. And first thing we're going to do here, actually, is go grab this potion up here. You can't forget the potion in your PC. You can't forget that. You gotta use that, man. So, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I guess we should preface that by saying I did not have a lot of money growing up. My family was not very well off for the first few years of my life. And so, as a result, I didn't really get things very quickly. There was a lot of people that would get these games as soon as they came out, but I wasn't one of them. This game actually came out, and I didn't get Pokemon or like any of the Pokemon games or Game Boy when they first came out or anything like that. But there's a lot of people in my school that did. And so, as a result, there was always like this mystery to it. You know, my friends would occasionally let me borrow their Game Boys, or they would occasionally let me play their game at recess and stuff like that, and so I would be able to see some of the stuff that's happening in the game, but it's like, it's just such a mystery because I don't own the game, and at the time, you know, there was internet, but I didn't have internet, and everything was just, there was a mystery to everything back before everything was on the internet, you know, and so I really wanted the game. I really wanted the Game Boy, but of course we couldn't afford it right away, so I had to kind of deal with borrowing from my friends and whatnot. And of course with Pokemon, the fact that you can only have one save, I can never start over and start my own journey and pick my own Pokemon or anything like that. And so that always kind of stunk. But my friend one day let me borrow his Game Boy. I remember that specifically. His name was Justin. I remember his last name, but obviously I don't want to say the guy's last name in the video. But he lived right up the road from me. And you may be thinking I'm talking about my brother. I'm not. My brother's name is also Justin. But it's a completely different Justin that let me borrow his Game Boy and his Pokemon game. And I remember specifically, like, I played for just a small period of time. Like, I barely played at all. We're going to grab a Squirtle here, and I'm going to tell you why we're grabbing a Squirtle later on here in the story. But he let me borrow his game, and I took it home. I was playing it, and I didn't know what happened because I got one of his Pokemon poisoned. And if you've played these Pokemon games and a Pokemon gets poisoned, it's horrible. Because, like, the screen starts shaking, it's like, da-da-da, da-da-da. It makes this, like, scary sound, your screen starts shaking. I thought I broke his Game Boy. I thought I broke his game, so I immediately turned it off. You know, I didn't save or anything like that. I immediately turned it off, and I was afraid to turn it back on. I gave it back to him at the end of the weekend, and on the bus for the following school week, and I was like, you know what, here it is, and he took it, and I'm like, I hope he doesn't, you know, figure out that I broke his game, because that would really, really stink, and obviously I didn't. It just one of his Pokemon got poisoned, and I didn't save, so his Pokemon wasn't even poisoned when he checked it, so everything was fine. But it just, I remember that specifically. It's something that sticks out in my mind. It's just like, there's such a mystery to the game. I was so confused by anything that was happening. But, like I said, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my mom always worked to make sure that we didn't really realize that we didn't have a lot of money growing up. We never really went without. Now, it came to big things, like buying, you know, console, or gaming consoles, or, you know, things like a Sega, or things like a Game Boy, or anything like that. We could get them, but we kind of had to save up for them. Now, my brother and I each got a $5 a week allowance, and, basically, I would take that allowance, and I put in a jar, and I marked the jar like the Game Boy jar, you know, and every week she would give me my money for my allowance. I wouldn't spend it on anything. I'd immediately just put it in that jar, and I would end up saving it up. Well, one day, and keep in mind I was in elementary school at this time, because this game released in 1998, and I was born in 1991, so I was about 7 years old when this game came out. But this was maybe a year after the game came out or so, and I was in school, and the teachers say, well, today's going to be wrestling day. They didn't announce this prior at all. And they're like, hey, if you guys want to try out for the wrestling team, call up your parents, and we will see if they can come and pick you up after school, and you can stay and, you know, try out for the wrestling team. And I was really into wrestling growing up. I was actually part of a lot of wrestling teams. I have some pictures of me as a wrestler. I don't think I have any of them on my PC, actually, but there are pictures of me as a wrestler in my full little onesie leotard thing and everything. Man, I used to be a wrestler when I was in, like, elementary school. And so I wanted to try out, obviously. So I go down to the office, and I get on the phone, and I call up my mom, like, hey, can I stay after school for the trial for the wrestling team, and then you can, like, come and pick me up at, like, 5 or so? And she's like, well, that's sure, fine, but we kind of had a surprise for you tonight. And I was like, wait a minute, a surprise? But she wouldn't tell me what it was. I'm like, a surprise? All right, then. Well, I guess I'm about trying out for the school wrestling team. I'm going to go home. And so I go home, and she says, you know what? You've been saving up your money for your Game Boy and for your Pokemon game forever now. I'll pay for the other half of it. Let's go get it. We made a whole night of it. And it's one of those nights I really remember in my head as being like one of the best nights of my life because my brother was really young. And so my dad watched my brother. My brother was born in 97, so he would have been like 1 at this time. So he was very young, but my dad stayed home with him. And my mom and I went out, and we kind of made like a whole evening of it. At the time, Burger King was doing like a promotional thing. You guys remember like the old Burger King promotions where you would be able to get like those silver-plated Pokemon cards within a Pokeball, or you'd be able to get all the different Burger King Pokemon toys and whatnot and stuff. So we went there, and let's go grab a town map. Now, there's no point grabbing a town map. I don't need to grab a town map. But we went out there, and we made a whole night of it. We went and ate, and then we went to some stores just to like look at stuff and like basically, we just went out and did stuff, and it was fun. Eventually, we ended up going and buying a Game Boy. The Game Boy I chose, because there was obviously a wide variety of Game Boys to choose from, lots of different kinds. There was, like, the purple see-through that we always called it. There was, like, a red one. There was a yellow one. There was a blue one. There was a teal one as well. And the teal one's what I ended up going with, because at the time, you know, blue is a great color. Green's a great color. Teal's, like, those two combined, and I really wanted that one. So I got that, and I got Pokemon Blue along with it, because Pokemon Blue seemed to make sense if I have a teal Game Boy, right? And the worst part about it, as an 8, maybe 9-year-old kid riding home, I couldn't play my new Game Boy that I had been saving up for months to get. You know, I couldn't play my new Game Boy. I couldn't play my new Pokemon game. I was so eager and excited to, you know, try this, because I'd been borrowing my friends' Game Boys for ages. I've been playing occasionally at recess and whatnot, but I never actually could, like, start my own game. You know, I always had to, like, kind of mess around and not really do much on their saves, you know, but I had my chance to make my own save, but I couldn't play it because there's no back screen on the freaking Game Boy. Like, everything nowadays, our phones, our tablets, everything, all gaming devices, everything has a backlit screen nowadays, right? Well, Game Boy Colors didn't. Way back when, they just didn't. So I was like riding home, like leaning up against the window. Yeah, I'm sure you guys did this as well. Like just waiting for a street light to come by so I could possibly get a little bit of light, try and play my game. But we lived out in the country. There was no street light for me to see. So it was terrible. I ended up getting home. I had to go to bed because it was like 10 o'clock at night by the time we got home. And it was just, I remember specifically, like, laying there, and my door, if you can picture it, it's just a door frame. Like, there was no actual door to my bedroom growing up. Like, there was just a door frame with no door. And the light would come in from the hallway. And I was laying there and just using the light from the hallway to play this game until I end up falling asleep. And my first Pokemon was a Squirtle. I always say Bulbasaur is my favorite Pokemon, which he is. Bulbasaur is by far my favorite. But my first time ever, like, my first ever playthrough of Pokemon, I picked a Squirtle because I figured teal Game Boy, Pokemon Blue, let's grab a Squirtle. That and, you know, Blastoise was cool, Wartortle was cool. But looking back, I definitely wish I would have taken Bulbasaur, because Bulbasaur is by far my favorite. And so that was my first experience having the game. And of course, I just fell in love with the game, and it became borderline addicted to it. You know, I just played it all the time. I took the Game Boy to school, and I showed people on the bus, and I played the whole way to school. And keep in mind, like, I lived out in the country. It was no joke, a 45-minute bus ride to my school. That's what it was like for me, because we lived, I want to say, probably 20-25 minutes away from the school, like, if you were just go straight. But of course, we had to, like, stop everywhere to pick up everybody on the way there. And so it was about a 40 to 45 minute bus ride. Like, I remember, like, we'd get out of school at 3. You get on the bus, you leave school at about 3:10 or so, and we would get home just before 4 o'clock. Like, it was a very long bus ride, so I would always play my Game Boy and play Pokemon stuff on the way there, and, you know, of course, we played recess, and it was just all a blast. It was definitely a blast, and that was really what kind of set the foundation, I would say, for my lifelong passion that became video games, because I look back at the release dates, and I'm trying my best to remember this, but keep in mind, I was very young when all this happened, and I cannot remember which one I had first, but I also had a Sega Genesis 3 growing up, which, same thing, I had to, you know, save up half of it, my parents paid for the other half of it, and God, Professor Oak is going on forever here, but I remember having that and playing Sonic the Hedgehog and playing WWF Royal Rumble and playing Sonic and Knuckles, right, that was one of the games we played as well, and I loved the idea of video games. I love the fact that within, like, your television, you had this interactive world that you could play around in. There's always such mystery to everything, and you wanted to get better at it, and you wanted to explore things. And I think that really set me up, again, for just a lifelong journey of playing through video games, and just how I was always excited for that new game that came out. I was always excited to learn more about what was going to happen in that game, what was going to be different about that game. I wanted to get better at it. I wanted to be able to be better than my brother and better than my cousins, better than my dad at these video games. Again, growing up, I played a lot of Game Boy Color, you know, once I got that. I actually didn't play a lot of other Game Boy games. Like, there's a lot of people out there that have, like, a lot of nostalgia for Nintendo and a lot of the Nintendo games. And as I'm looking at the recording right here, it's looking like Rattata's name is a little bit cut off, but I can't figure out a way to get that to be not cut off with the way that this is set up, so I apologize for that. Oh, and level 7 for Squirtle. Level 7 for Squirtle, not too bad whatsoever. Nope, I just tried messing around with it, but no, I don't think I can actually change the little cropping I had right here. But back to what I was saying. So I think a lot of people have, like, this lifelong nostalgia of Nintendo games. Like, all the games they used to play, like, on the Game Boy and then going to all the other Nintendo consoles and whatnot. I was never like that. Like, the only Nintendo console, you can't really call it that I ever owned was a Game Boy. You know, it's a handheld device, obviously, but I never owned, like, any of the Nintendo stuff. So playing Game Boy and stuff, I didn't own any other Game Boy games. I never played any other Game Boy games besides Pokemon, and I played nothing but Pokemon. It was insane. Like, I played it so much. And of course, again, I played a bunch of stuff on the Sega Genesis as well, and then my first, like, bigger, newer console was the PlayStation 1, where I would play a lot of the Metal Gear Solid games. I would play a lot of the Tony Hawk games. I would play a lot of that. I was really into sports. All my life, I really have been kind of into sports, and, you know, during the 90s, early 2000s, it was definitely a very popular thing, the idea of extreme sports, and so, of course, I was into that as well, you know, BMX bikes and skateboarding and things like that. So I'd play the Dave Mirra games, the Matt Hoffman games, the Tony Hawk games, a lot of Nickelodeon related games. Like, I always liked the branded games. I've always loved those. You know, I watched a lot of Nickelodeon growing up. I'm gonna go over here. Wait, how many Pokeballs do I have? Can I catch a Mankey? I'd love to catch a Mankey. I'm level 7. I should be able to catch a Mankey. Wait, level 7. Go to items. I don't have a Pokeball in here. Let's go grab some. But yeah, I was always into the branded games growing up, and playing games like Nicktoons Racing, which at the time, because you saw well, we didn't specifically see the success, but the success of Mario Kart, you know, way back when, really set up, like, this giant list of games. Everyone wanted to be Mario Kart. There was a Mario Kart clone everywhere. Similar to how there's Dota clones everywhere now. There's League of Legends clones everywhere now. There were Mario Kart clones everywhere, and one of them was Nicktoons Racing, which I loved growing up, because I watched nothing but Nickelodeon. That was, like, my TV show. Like, so a lot of people would, like, watch either Nickelodeon or Disney growing up. I watched Nickelodeon. And so playing that game a lot growing up, that was great. A lot of the other branded games that came out, like, there was SpongeBob games growing up, and there was Rocket Power games growing up, and things like that. So we played a lot of that stuff on the PlayStation 1. Then the PlayStation 2 came out, and that's Nidoran female. And I ended up playing that as well, and, you know, just playing all different kinds of stuff on the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, and all the Medal of Honor games, which really got me into, like, the idea of war games growing up, was playing through the Medal of Honor games, which I think they may have had multiplayer. I can't remember if they had multiplayer or not, but I didn't have internet growing up. So I didn't ever play the multiplayer. I just played through the campaigns. I loved war games. Like, something about it interested me. Like, they were all World War II based. You look at Medal of Honor European Assault, Medal of Honor Oh, what, Rising Sun, that was the name of it. That was a really intense game. You know, for a game that came out so long ago, you basically wake up on a ship in Pearl Harbor as Pearl Harbor is being attacked. You have to go top deck and start shooting down planes and stuff like that. Like, it was just a really neat concept for a game. And just every time I would try a new game, every time I would get like a new experience that way, always made me like video games even more. You know, because there's always this story to be told. There's always this interactive thing to learn and to see within video games. And I don't know, that's one of the reasons why I think I still play video games to this day after the PlayStation 2. After, again, I played a bunch of games on there. I can't really list off all of them, but a lot of the Medal of Honor games, a lot of wrestling games, a lot of sports games. And after that came out, my cousin, and this is how I got into Call of Duty, which I think I told a story before. Maybe some of you guys haven't heard this story, so we'll go along with it. I went over to my cousin's house one day, and at the time, I thought all we had was PlayStation 2s. Yeah, we had PlayStation 2s, and he had one, I had one. And you know, we had the same games, so obviously you couldn't play online, so we would always play when we went to each other's houses and whatnot. It's like, I go over to his house one day, and he has an Xbox 360, which I'm like, you have an Xbox? What? I'd heard of Xboxes, but I'd never actually played one or anything like that. And he's playing Call of Duty, I think it was Call of Duty 3 online. Like, he was actually playing online with and against other people, which to me was like, what? You can do that? And you know, again, this is someone I played a lot of Medal of Honor. I was just, whatever reason, very into the idea of Medal of Honor. Keep in mind, when Call of Duty 3 was out, it was just before Call of Duty 4, so this would have been 2005, maybe. So this would have been about 7 years after Pokemon Blue came out and whatnot. Which, God, how technology has changed in that short period of time. You look at Call of Duty 3 is no gem. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. Looking back at the graphics, it was no gem whatsoever. But you look at this game versus like Call of Duty 3 and how that was like just a 5, 6, 7 year gap. Like, it's kind of insane, right? And I was watching him playing Call of Duty online against other people. I don't remember what map it was, but some of you guys maybe played Call of Duty 3. He and these other people on his team, he was talking to all of them, and I could hear them through the TV and whatnot. They were defending a dead cow on one of the maps. I don't know why. There was a dead cow on the map, and they were all like defending it, and Squirrel here has learned Bubble. And that just seemed so cool to me, and he let me play for a couple of games. I just thought it was so cool. Like, I took a sniper immediately because, you know, sniping, and I would hide in buildings and always did terrible, but I just loved the idea of it. And so, you know, I immediately fell in love with the idea of playing these games online. That year, I ended up getting an Xbox 360 for Christmas, which there's always that disconnect. People always kind of wondered why I had a PlayStation 1 and a PlayStation 2 growing up, but then I went to the Xbox 360, and since I've always been kind of an Xbox player, even though now I own both an Xbox One and a PS4. But the reason why is because I went with what my cousin had. That's how it always kind of went. You know, my cousin had a Sega growing up, so I got a Sega. So we could, you know, take our games to each other's houses and play and whatnot, and we would own the same games, and we would call each other on our home telephones and chat about what we did in our video games and whatnot. Video games have always been a big part of my life. And so he got an Xbox 360. And I wanted it as well, so I got an Xbox 360. I think I got it for Christmas. Again, I didn't buy these things. I ended up getting it for Christmas, but we were a little bit better off financially by that point in time. And so I got that, and Call of Duty 4 was already out at that time, so I got it with Call of Duty 4, and between my friend Tyler, my cousin Nick, and I, we played Call of Duty 4 all the freaking time, just all the time, always trying to, you know, do better than each other, because there's always that rivalry, you know, and I think it's like that spirit of competition as well, which is one of the big reasons why I've always liked video games. You know, I think over the past couple of years, I'm starting to lean back more towards, like, not so much competition, but just enjoyable games. But for a long period of time, I always wanted to play video games to compete against other people. You know, I played a lot of sports games, especially like some of the earlier Maddens and stuff like that, like on the 360, so I could, you know, face people online and, you know, show them how much better I am than them. Or Call of Duty, you know, same thing. Like, I'm going to get a better score than you. I'm going to lead the lobby and all this stuff. But as of recently, I'm more like into single-player games and stuff as well, because it's not as stressful, but I've always been like that. You know, I've always loved the spirit of competition. I think that comes from, again, growing up. I played sports all growing up. I wrestled a lot when I was younger, except for the one year when I got my Game Boy Color, which wrestling tryouts were that day, but I had to choose between a surprise, which turned out to be my Game Boy Color, and going on the wrestling team. And I went with a surprise, which turned out to be a Game Boy Color. And I wonder, like, if I look back at that one fateful day, what if, you know, and I used to do a series called What If, that everyone's always like, Nero, bring back that series. But, like, I just didn't think the series was really that great. But looking back, what if I were to have not decided to go home that day? You know, what if I would have just stayed after school, went to wrestling practice, which they call it wrestling tryouts, but everyone made a team. You know, so I could have went there. I could have did that. And I would have made a wrestling team. I would have not gotten my Game Boy that day. I probably would have got my Game Boy a different day. You know, I probably would have gotten that because, you know, she was willing to pay the other half of the cost for the Game Boy in the game, and I had the other half of the money. So I would have gotten it a different day for sure, but I would have also been part of the wrestling team. You know, how would that little change in my past, how would that have changed things? Would I be as into gaming as I am now? You know, would I be where I am now on YouTube if it weren't for that day? You know, you never really know. It's weird to think back to that. It's definitely weird to think back to that. But you look at, you know, there's very humble beginnings of borrowing my friends' Game Boys and messing around on there. And now, you know, I'm a YouTuber. I spend literally, you know, 10, 15 hours a day at a computer desk playing video games, making videos. And gaming has been my career for the past 3+ years. And I'm looking forward to continuing on with that. And I don't know, it's just insane. It's insane how there's a snowball effect. And just my entire life, it's been set up, and really my entire life kind of revolves around video games in a lot of ways, really. I mean, of course, sports and stuff like that has always been a part of my life as well. Again, I did wrestling growing up, and I did basketball and baseball and American football. I did soccer as well. I was a goalie in soccer, and that was actually kind of fun. But my parents didn't let me play soccer. This is completely off topic. My parents didn't like me playing soccer as much. Not because, like, soccer is a bad sport or anything, but because they said it was so boring for them to watch. Because, you know, Little League soccer, nobody ever scores. It's just people running up and down fields constantly. So oh, there's a Pikachu. No way. So for them, it was boring. And so I didn't end up playing much soccer, but baseball and basketball and football and all those other things, you know, I'm just going to throw the Pokeball at him. I don't think I can use a tackle or anything on him without knocking him out, so. Do we got it? Right, Pikachu was caught. So, yeah, I'm looking at the timer here. We've been recording this for quite a long time. I didn't think a video would be this long, but that's really just what I want to do with this particular video. Is I just kind of wanted to go on a bit of a nostalgia trip, you know, walk through here, just listen to some of the great music. No, I don't want to give, no, I don't want to give Pikachu a nickname. No nickname for Pikachu. Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't know how to get rid of the nickname that I already gave him, so I'll just go over here to end. And, did I actually name him anything? I think I named him Dash. Nope, alright. Alright. He has just a regular Pikachu name. But yeah, that's really what I want to do here. I want to go on a little bit of a nostalgia trip, just kind of walk through, look at the really old models, like, ew, look at Metapod here. He's just a bunch of pixels. Just a bunch of pixels. But, that's what I really want to do with this video. And, you know, happy birthday to Pokemon Red and Blue, which, again, released in North America on today, September 28th of 1998, which is a very long time ago. And how this game really molded my childhood. Pokemon was my childhood, man. Pokemon, you know, playing the Game Boy games. And of course, from the Game Boy games, you spawn into all different forms of media. You know, of course, there was the Pokemon card game that people would play so much way back when. I would miss my tackle. We played the Pokemon card game, which we never actually played the Pokemon card game. Everyone just collected the cards, at least in my school anyway. We never actually played against each other. And then the television show. There was a television show that was online, and not online, on TV. I'm so used to saying online now because I don't watch TV ever. But there was a Pokemon show that was on TV, and then the VHS tapes of the Pokemon show. And then the cross promotions that they do with different things, like Burger King, and all the stuff that you can get with that, and all the magazines, and the comic books, and the little Pokemon Gigapets. Who remembers the Pokemon Gigapets? I remember I had a Pikachu Pokemon Gigapet, and which I think was the only one that they had. And I had to go to school, and I left it with my mom, because we weren't allowed to have these things in school. And so I left it with my mom, like, yeah, you gotta walk Pikachu. Remember to feed Pikachu, Mom. Remember to feed him, or he'll get mad. Alright, and you gotta remember to feed him. You gotta remember to walk him, give him exercise. She didn't do it, and I came home, and he ran away. My Pikachu ran away. And I was so upset with my mama. So upset. But, yeah, I think we're going to end off the video now. I think we're going to conclude off this video. Just kind of wrap things up here. That's kind of my experience with gaming. And a lot of it, not all of it, you know, I, of course, played lots of different games growing up. But a lot of it stemmed from this game right here, Pokemon Blue. And, of course, you know, how elementary school works, especially recess and whatnot, is trading. You trade for everything. Here it is! No, I'm poisoned! Oh, you guys get to see it. I'm poisoned. I'm gonna die. But how elementary school works is you trade stuff. You know, I trade you a bunch of Pokemon cards in exchange for your Pokemon Red. So now I have Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Red and Pokemon Yellow. And, you know, I would just, you know, I was wheeling and dealing at recess, which I think a lot of us did. But, That's how it worked for me. But here I am poisoned, and if you remember back towards the beginning of the video, I told you about the time I got my friend's Pokemon poisoned when he let me borrow his Game Boy. I thought I broke his Game Boy. Because look at this. Look at this. Oh, you're not going to show it because right now we're like in the forest and there's all these Pokemon. But I'm going to try and run away from them. I'm just going to run away and keep on walking. Squirtle might end up getting knocked out, but we'll see. But it makes a sound. It shakes your screen. Yeah, look at this. I'm like, did I break his Game Boy? Why is this happening? And that's just letting you know that he's taking a little bit of ticking damage from poison. Freaking terrifying, man. Just freaking terrifying. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed my little nostalgia trip. Happy birthday to Pokemon Red and Blue. Some of the best games that I've ever played. Loved playing them growing up. And I still like going through them now and again in my spare time just because it's fun to go back on these nostalgia trips. And of course, they made remakes of these with Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Leaf Green, which by all accounts were better games. By all accounts, I think they were better games. But because they look better. They're the same game, but they just look better. Because looking back at these graphics, man, it's kind of insane. Like sometimes there's a bit of nostalgia, I think. I have no way of actually getting rid of that poison on Squirtle. So there's a bit of nostalgia looking back at these graphics, looking back at all the pixels and whatnot. But I think it's the same thing as Minecraft. You know, I think a lot of you guys play Minecraft. That's a good assumption. Squirtle fainted. Aw. A lot of you guys probably play Minecraft, but you know, the default Minecraft textures, they're okay. They have this charm to them, being as blocky and pixely as they are. But there's a lot of really good texture packs and a lot of really good resource packs out there that have the game, that stay true to the way the game was supposed to originally look, but they just make them look better. You know, and those things just look better, but it's also at the same time nice to go back and look at graphics like this. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my little nostalgia trip as we walk through Pewter City here, all the way up here to the little museum. The Pewter Museum of Science, which you had to pay a little bit of money when you went in there, and you could just look at stuff. And I just enjoyed looking back to this stuff. But again, hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments, did you guys play this game growing up? And what is, give me kind of like a brief gaming history, I suppose, for all of you. I think that would be interesting. If you guys could let me know, like, what games you started out on, like, what games kind of like got you to where you are today. Let me know about that. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Remember to leave a rating. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.